You see what we found when we went in there were shelves of these SIM cards and SIM servers that were used to run this network.
We are learning, according to the North American Aerospace Defense Command, also known as NORAD, the U.S. scrambled fighter jets and other aircraft to identify and intercept 4 Russian warplanes flying near Alaska today.
President Trump scrapped a planned meeting with the top 2 Democrats in Congress as a potential government shutdown loomed.
In this video, we're going to examine 3 stories that really illustrate how things are becoming increasingly fragile in our world. And more importantly, we're going to talk about solutions. Federal officials just revealed they stopped a hidden network that could have taken down cell service and emergency lines in a major city. There's a major warning that the United States economy is slowing under the weight of tariffs and inflation, while farmers face one of the hardest years in decades. Once again, Washington is facing a budget showdown that could result in furloughs for workers, service freezes, and ripple effects throughout the entire economy. In this video, I'm going to explain why these are not just headlines to skim past and how they could compound to create a much larger crisis. We're also going to announce the winner of our last giveaway, this week's giveaway, and how you can enter. Most importantly, though, I'll share my own perspective on what all this means and the steps that I'm taking now to prepare for what's to come. So let's jump in. If you're new to this channel, my name is Chris, and on this channel we discuss emergency preparedness, aka prepping. Now, we're living in a time frame where disruptions seem to really stack on top of one another. A cyber intrusion that grounds flights, a tariff that drives up food prices, Russian drones and jets flying over our European allies, or a budget standoff in Washington. They may seem like separate events, but together they start to resemble converging storm fronts. And when pressures like these collide, they can overwhelm systems quickly, and they can push daily life toward real instability. And these are not just distant headlines. They are part of a larger pattern of instability that touches each of us, and I'm going to show you how to prepare before the next storm hits. So let's examine 3 recent developments that illustrate how close that convergence may be. Red vectors. In military terminology, a red vector is the heading of a hostile aircraft. Red designates an enemy force in tactical symbology, and vector refers to a directional heading in aviation. So when air defense operators or pilots talk about a red vector, they mean the incoming path of a threat. And it's a kind of language used when militaries are bracing for hostile incursions. And while that phrase describes flight paths, it also applies to the way hostile actors today probe and push into our digital and physical defenses. This week, federal officials revealed they disrupted what they described as a hidden SIM server network, a kind of underground telecom farm that had the ability to cripple communications across a major city. Now, the system would have disabled cell service, blocked emergency lines, and disrupted networks that every modern service relies on, from transportation to healthcare to finance. Now, I'm not going to overwhelm you with the details of this attack, which has a cute name, smishing. But imagine about 100,000 calls across all cellular networks simultaneously. And if you've ever lived through an earthquake or natural disaster, you know that everything trying to make calls at the same time easily overwhelms the networks and can cause them to fail. Now imagine those 100,000 calls were also accompanied by malware launched through text messages. A text message saying click here to restore your cellular network, but really launching malicious software on your device. It can prevent a network from ever being restored. And if that accidental click launches a similar malware-laden message to everyone in your contacts, well, you can see how this could easily cascade out of control. It can easily overwhelm providers and prevent containment. This story was barely a blip in the news streams before many agencies moved on to other news, but more attention should have been paid attention to this. It's a chilling attack that was being staged to directly attack America, sow confusion and chaos, and bring down critical infrastructure on a massive scale. According to the Secret Service, this network had already begun quietly registering thousands of SIM cards with the potential to flood emergency channels or blackout access altogether. Now, the public would have been blindsided. Police, fire, hospitals, power companies, and banks, they all rely on digital networks. Take the frustration that you feel when you can't get a signal and amplify that a million times. No navigation apps, no communication, no transactions, no deliveries, and so forth. Now strip those away and the entire gridlock cascades in minutes. Combine that with any other attack of any other kind, and it's complete chaos. Was this being planned in time for the UN summit? Did we just dodge a massive bullet? This was not just a theoretical attack being prepared. It could have easily been in preparation to compound with these other major attacks this week. One unfolded in the airline industry. Over the past week, flights were grounded across the United States and Europe after coordinated cyber intrusions into airline systems. United Airlines canceled departures worldwide. American Airlines faced disruptions. Heathrow and other European hubs halted flights after a man was arrested in connection with the cyber attack. Unknown assailants, sometimes tied back to state-sponsored groups, are striking at chokeholds where a single system outage ripples through millions of lives. Each incident really highlights the fragility of the connective tissue that holds modern society together. Meanwhile, in the skies, the threats continue to multiply. Danish airports reported waves of drone incursions disrupting flights, and U.S. fighter jets intercepted Russian bombers and fighters inside Alaska's Air Defense Identification Zone. And in Washington, senior U.S. generals and admirals were urgently summoned to a rare high-level strategy session at Quantico, a meeting some defense officials admitted was extraordinary in scope and tone. And on top of that, Russia is probing defenses with aircraft drones and hybrid pressure tactics. If these red vectors were to converge with cyber shutdowns on the ground paired with airspace violations overhead, the path toward escalation would be undeniable. At the very least, the immediate shutdown of the SIM farm scheme may mean you get fewer robocalls about your car warranty expiring. And I wish that were all it was set up for, but it's doubtful. That much effort and $1 million worth of equipment isn't for spam calling. It's about staging an attack. It was also ramping up and registering the thousands of SIM cards. The timing strongly indicates the attack was intended to coincide with the UN meeting, potentially to disrupt communications during this critical diplomatic gathering. And the UN headquarters located in Manhattan is a key target for such strategic attacks. We really dodged one bullet only to see many more heading our way. As Russia continues to probe and push, daring the West to stumble into direct conflict, a much larger problem is emerging as these events pile up and will eventually compound upon each other. If Putin succeeds in drawing NATO forces across Russian borders, his narrative that the West is attacking Russia becomes true in the eyes of his people. That would mark a dangerous new phase in expansion in an already grinding war. What's next? The lesson for us is to see these red vectors not as isolated blips, but as warnings of where the real pressure is building. A person cannot simply shrug and say, "This does not affect me," or "I don't use my phone that way," or "I'm not flying this week." That is dismissing the threat at your own peril. These attacks are ramping up in scope, magnitude, and reach, and it's only a matter of days, weeks, or months before we see a coordinated strike large enough to cripple infrastructure on a scale that we've never experienced before. The next indicators to watch for will not be single disruptions, but synchronized blows. Picture telecom outages coinciding with airline groundings. Imagine drones buzzing airports while cyber attacks jam emergency channels. Watch for high-level meetings that shift from quiet consultations to open mobilization. Each of these signals would indicate that the pressure cooker was sealing tighter, with less margin for error and less time to react. At the household level, the takeaway is urgent but practical. Take better control of your digital profile and avoid relying exclusively on fragile networks. If you need it, put a paper map in your car so that you're not relying on networks that could fail to transmit. Write down essential phone numbers and account information and carry it with you. Build in a margin by keeping cash on hand so that you're not paralyzed if card systems fail. Establish alternative ways to receive news and communicate, such as a landline, QB radio, or walkie-talkies, in case traditional methods are unavailable. These are no longer luxuries, but essential tools of resilience. Just as governments need layered defenses, so do households. Redundancy is the difference between panic and steadiness when the next red vector comes into view. So what do you think? How are you preparing for potential synchronized attacks in the future? How reliant are you on these systems we rarely even think about anymore? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. This YouTube ad-free video is sponsored by EcoFlow. When the grid fails, reliable backup power is not a luxury, it's survival. An extended outage can mean spoiled food, lost communication, and unsafe conditions for your family. EcoFlow's Delta Pro Ultra is built for that critical moment. With expandable capacity and 240-volt split-phase output, it can power critical loads in your home, from refrigerators and medical devices, essential AC and heating. Pair it with solar, and you have a system that runs for days or even indefinitely without relying on the grid. It's a plug-and-play system that can integrate directly into your home. And not every home needs full coverage, and that's where EcoFlow's other models shine. The Delta Pro 3 delivers strong portable power with split-phase capability, making it great for garages, workshops, or medium-sized homes that need backup without investing in a full system. The Delta 2 Max strikes a balance, offering extended runtime for blackouts or off-grid trips while staying portable. And for those who just want peace of mind for the basics, the Delta 2 is a compact, everyday solution ideal for lights, Wi-Fi, and medical devices during an emergency. This Prime Day, EcoFlow is offering its best prices of the year. If backup power is on your list, Now's the time to take a serious look. Check the links below for details and discount codes. Instability era. We're living in what can only be called an instability era. The Organization for Economics, Cooperation and Development, an intergovernmental organization of 386 members of countries, has warned that the United States economy is slowing under the weight of tariffs, inflation, and reduced immigration, with stagflation looming on the horizon. Now, that combination of higher prices, weaker growth, and declining job security is not some distant threat. It's unfolding now, and the cracks are widening. Forecasts paint a sobering picture. U.S. growth is expected to fall to 1.8% in 2025 and down to 1.5% by 2026, compared to nearly 3% last year. And that decline comes before the full brunt of this year's tariffs are even felt. Many of the price increases are still working their way through the system, and when they fully land, households and small businesses will bear the weight. And for the average family, that means groceries and fuel, they're going to keep climbing while wages stagnate. For the economy as a whole, it means momentum slows, investment dries up, and job opportunities thin. The farm economy offers a clear and painful example. Farmers are staring down soaring input costs, plummeting crop prices, and collapsing export markets. Reports already describe this as a possible farm crisis, one where income only looks stable because of emergency federal aid. And without subsidies, farm bankruptcies will be surging well beyond their current historic highs. Soybean and sorghum exports have been gutted by trade wars. High interest rates and reduced labors have left harvest at risk, and many farm groups are sounding the alarm, warning that the sector is sliding toward a tipping point they call Farmageddon. You may be asking yourself if you're really feeling it yet. Maybe you only notice a few items at the store costing more or price increases that do not keep pace. But for millions of families, especially in rural America and among the working class, this instability is already eroding savings, limiting job prospects, and straining supply reliability. And look, this is not the end of the story. It's the opening chapter of a decade defined by volatility, where prices continue rising and the middle class feels more squeezed than ever before. The OECD's warning is clear, and so is the trend line. This is not a momentary hiccup, but the beginning of a longer season where instability becomes a norm. Financial markets are already stretched, governments are carrying heavier debts, and households are facing rising costs across food, energy, housing, and insurance. It only takes one additional shock, and whether that's a trade rupture, a geopolitical conflict, or supply chain breakdown, for fragile systems to really seize up and fail. What's next? The lesson for households is to take the same kind of defensive measures economists are urging nations to take. Build your reserves while you still can. Keep as much cash cushion as possible and cut down on high-interest debt. Stock up now on durable goods and shelf-stable foods before another round of price hikes. Look for ways to diversify income streams or develop skills that really help you adapt to changing job markets. And above all, pay attention to early warning signs in food, fuel, and household goods. They are rarely isolated events in an economy already under strain. And we're only at the beginning of this instability era. Recognizing that fact early and preparing now is what will keep families steady while others are blindsided. So what do you think? Are you living the high life, or are you really watching every penny and maybe holding off on a few purchases? Are things about to turn around, or are we already heading into a decline? I'd love to hear your take on the economy in the comments section below. Budget showdown. Once again, the federal government is barreling toward a shutdown, and this time the stakes may be higher than ever. The next week could be the 7th significant partial government shutdown since the year 2000. You may be tired of hearing me talk about this as much as I am, actually tired of talking about it, but it's a looming threat that will be greatly compounded by other economic downturns we're witnessing. That funding runs out on September 30th, and Congress has not yet even passed appropriation bills to keep it going. Congress and the White House remain locked in a standoff over healthcare, subsidies, and discretionary spending. Negotiations have collapsed after the meeting was canceled with Democratic leaders, and the Senate has already rejected a temporary measure to extend funding past the deadline. This week, the Office of Management and Budget directed agencies to prepare for mass layoffs. And this comes at a time that federal workers who were laid off or accepted buyouts under the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, are being asked to return to work by October 6 of 2025. And those same people will very possibly be asked to leave again the same week they're asked to return. The rehired employees are expected to report for duty about after 7 months of paid leave, during which agencies still incurred operational expenses. And unlike past shutdowns, which largely relied on temporary furloughs, this time agencies have been told to draft plans for permanent reductions in force. Programs without mandatory funding would be cut entirely, leaving vast swaths of federal services frozen. At first, the impacts would look like bureaucratic inconveniences. Delays in passport processing, slower IRS returns, and closed national parks would be the most visible signs. But if the shutdown drags on, the deeper cuts would emerge. Federal employees would go without pay, contracts would dry up, businesses with government contracts won't be paid, safety inspections could halt, and rural communities reliant on federal income might see sudden economic shocks. Even the federal courts have warned that they could not sustain operations for long without new funding. The consequences really reach beyond paychecks and permits. Financial markets, they depend on regular reporting from federal agencies, and if data stops, oversight agencies scale back and regulators, they can't function. Investors' confidence could waver. Past shutdowns show the ripple effects, but the current context is a bit more fragile. A weak farm economy, ongoing tariff wars, and slowing growth makes this shutdown feel less like temporary dysfunction and more like the opening act of something more profound. This is a larger story. The government is already stretched by hiring freezes and trimmed budgets, agencies are operating with fewer staff, and the margin for error is thin. A shutdown at this moment would not only disrupt daily life, but would also accelerate existing cracks in the economy and society. In farm country, where bankruptcies are rising and input costs are soaring, any pause in federal aid or permitting will hit especially hard. The broader system is under stress, and the standoff threatens to push it further toward the edge. So what's next? This week ahead is going to really reveal whether this is just another short-lived standoff or the beginning of a deeper crisis. You want to watch for clear signs. If Congress cannot agree, even on a stopgap bill, you can expect agencies to begin announcing furloughs and temporary closures within days. Pay attention to whether the White House and Congress return to negotiations or instead harden their positions. If the fight shifts from budget lines to permanent reductions in force, that will signal the shutdown is unlike previous ones. Markets will also send signals. If economic reports are delayed or financial agencies cut back their oversight, confidence could begin to shake. And if federal courts or safety regulators scale back their work, the strain's going to slowly show up in everyday life. At the household level, preparation is straightforward but urgent. Keep cash on hand in case paychecks or benefits are interrupted or card systems falter. Stock food, medicine, and essential supplies now while shelves are still stable. You want to identify which federal services you rely on the most, whether that's crop support, healthcare, or regulatory approvals, and make a plan if those services pause. Look to diversify income streams if you can and strengthen your ties to local networks because community resilience matters more when national systems falter. By watching the right signals and preparing now, you will be ready not only for the first wave of inconvenience, but also for the deeper disruptions that could follow if this budget showdown drags on. What do you think? Will this budget battle become a major problem, or will it be over before it even starts? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Giveaway. This week's winner is going to receive a portable charger. All you have to do to participate in the giveaway is just simply comment on the video, give it a thumbs up, and complete the form linked in the description section below. Giving the video a thumbs up helps us to spread the prepping message even further. Also, you need to complete the form to be eligible, as that's how we randomly pick a winner and contact you. The information is only accessible to our team here at City Prepping, and using a random selection tool, we'll choose a winner from the entrance and reach out to you via the email that you provided on the submitted form. So congrats to our last giveaway winner for the food dehydrator, Corey Lewis. We'll be reaching out to you shortly to get that sent to you. As I always like to do at the end of these videos, I like to end with a word of encouragement, and I like to share what I've been working on. So let me first share what I've been working on, our garden. We're going to be releasing a video hopefully this weekend. We're still working on it, talking about things that you should plant for fall planting. We spent time as a team, one of my team members yesterday, we cleaned up the garden beds, pulled everything out from the past that was, already done. Admittedly, I let the chickens out a lot over the summer and they got in and destroyed some of the crops. That was my own fault. But anyway, we cleaned those out. We yesterday planted a bunch of new plants, starter plants, and some seeds. We'll cover all this in a video. Hopefully we'll release in a couple of days. Set up irrigation lines, finally. I put those off. I got sidetracked this summer with 100 different projects. I tried to set up some basic irrigation for the garden, just wasn't effective. A lot of things just didn't grow properly because I didn't set up the lines properly, and hey, lesson learned. And so, what have I learned from our summer harvest? We did actually get a decent crop. Some things came out well, some things didn't. Again, we're just getting to know our soil out here, as this is the first big crop that we plant out here. But the biggest problem that we had was rodents. They destroyed a lot of the stuff that we planted. We have mice here on the property that I had an exterminator come by to give a quote for today to deal with a bunch of stuff. It's not cheap. We also have squirrels, and they got into everything, so we're going to put fox urine around the garden beds, coyote urine, I forget which one of the two, but we'll put that up here soon because, again, it was such a problem. They went in and stripped down a lot of the plants before they even took off. The other issue that I learned, again, is poor irrigation. A poor irrigation setup. I was just setting up the basics, didn't set it up properly, and as a result, just didn't work very well. The other thing that I've been working on recently is the well water that we have here. I'm having it professionally tested. Going through an extensive setup, and I'll do a video on that, or at least share the findings here in a couple of weeks when we get the test results back. And also, lastly, we had flood damage in the main house. By flood damage, I mean we had a line that leaked and ended up getting into several walls. Had to get everything torn out, flooring, walls, a bunch of other stuff. And so been dealing with insurance over that, with that for the last several weeks. And finally today, they came back and said, yes, we'll cover the damage. So it's a lot of back and forth. But all that to say, this building a homestead here, a year into this, been a massive learning process. Been some things that I've learned the hard way, and that's the key. That's kind of what I want to encourage you in all of this is take action. It's easy to just sit and watch these videos and assume you'll figure it out one day, or if things go sideways, you can put it together. But this is a reason I bought the property. It's, again, to document my journey, and most importantly, for me to learn at a level that I haven't had to do before. So, again, if you're in the same situation, whether it's an apartment, a house, a homestead, wherever you're at, just do the steps. Because trust me, if things go sideways, you'll at least be ready and you'll have the confidence to address it. Primarily, when it comes to word of encouragement, I always like to end these videos on an upbeat note. And again, just taking an honest look and assessment of where we are and, try to get a proper perspective, for lack of better words. But the more that we really, I think, step back and, again, look at the stories that we covered, there's really a clear common thread that runs through these issues. Each headline, they may seem separate. A cyber attack over here, an economic slowdown there, a political gridlock somewhere else. But together, they really form a picture of accelerating instability. And, like watching converging storm fronts, these pressures are colliding and they're creating turbulence that can really shake our daily lives. As I talked about earlier, these are the red vectors that we talked about, the incoming pass of threats that are really aimed at overwhelming our systems, sowing confusion and testing how resilient we really are. And it would be easy to let fear take over, but fear is not the answer. Let me repeat that. It would be easy to let fear take over, but fear is not the answer. Preparation is. Prepping, it's not about panic. It's about foresight. It's about seeing the signs before they crash into us and taking steps to secure our homes, our families, and our future. And whether it's a cyber attack, an economic shock, or political dysfunction, we can't really stop the storm, but we can strengthen our footing. Stocking food, securing alternative power, learning new skills, and building community, they're not small things. They are the anchors of stability when the winds pick up. Every red vector reminds us that life is fragile, but it also reminds us that we are not powerless. Each step that you take to prepare today is a vote for resilience tomorrow. So don't let the headlines push you into despair. Let them push you into action, because while chaos may be incoming, so is a calm confidence of knowing you're ready. If you want to get a good sense of how these border violations and the looming economic crisis has escalated dramatically in just this month, check out a couple of videos I'm going to post here on the side of the screen that delve into these issues a little deeper. Also, if you missed my live workshop where I provided real solutions that you can plug in today to secure a better future for yourself, you can also catch a replay of that as well. And again, I'll post links to both these on the side of the screen in the description and comment section below. As always, stay safe out there.